Hello, I'm Andrew Hara, the host of the Bomb Squad. I wanted to tell you about my movies. All are available on Tubi, which is a free streaming service. The last one is a zombie drama about how a pandemic and isolation could drive a group of people mad. When the virus hits, John finds himself alone and scared until he meets Michael, his protector. But when Karina, another survivor, enters the mix, everything that John and Michael knew will be turned on its head. The last one is a zombie virus movie that's somehow even more relevant today. Plus, it has zombies. Check it out. Borderland is a mexploitation film about living in El Paso. When Sarah finds herself in debt to the cartels, she has until sunrise to find some missing monies with the help of her executioner. Borderland is a true midnight movie and a lot of fun. Finally, the documentary Humble Spirits tells the story of the Hahn family, including champion Jennifer Hahn from El Paso, Texas. The entire Hahn family has grown up in the combat sports and has helped shape who they are both in and out of the ring. Humble Spirits, a family of fighters, is the perfect documentary for boxing fans of all ages. Check out Tubi to watch all my films. And now, let's start the show.
What's up, guys? Welcome to a very special Valentine's Day edition of the Bomb Squad. That's why I got the guns out because it's Valentine's Day. We got a very special movie, one of my favorite movies of all time, and one of the best movies of all time. On the Bomb Squad today, we are covering the 2012 Americana classic. Steven Soderbergh, Channing Tatum, Gina Carrero. I'm just kidding. Um, Magic Mike, starring the Channing Tatum, of course, based on his own experiences as a male exotic dancer. Also starring Matthew McConaughey at the very beginning, the McConaughey resin whatever when he came back.
Renaissance. Yeah.
McConaughey
Reconnaissance.
and starring I Am Number Four, Alex Pettifer. I don't know if we reviewed I Am Number Four, but it kind of feels like we already did. Um, and then a bunch of other actors. It don't matter. You're only here for one reason. So today we're gonna talk Magic Mike. Josh, break down what Magic Mike is about, so I can get into it.
A young kid gets shown the world of male stripping by a work associate, and things are a little crazier than he expected.
Josh wrapped the description around Alex Pettifer's character, who we will barely be talking about, despite being one of the main characters. So yeah, let's just start from the beginning. I don't think I can like people will talk about like Jaws and Star Wars being like the best opening of all time, but there's not enough lawbreakers at the beginning of Jaws and Star Wars. So the movie opens with Matthew McConaughey. He plays Dallas, who runs this strip club in Tampa. They're all strippers in Tampa, and he's telling the audience the rules of the place. He's like, you can't touch this, you can't touch this, and he's like showing the places you can't touch. And then he says, the law says you can't touch this, and then he says his most famous line of, but I see a lot of lawbreakers up in here tonight.
Yeah,
I
it's
can't think of a better like that sets up the entire film. I feel
it's
like
it's
you
quite
know what
iconic.
you're watching
Some might say.
at that time. Hold on. Hold on. And so, Josh, what did you think of this film?
It's great. I think it's funny, like, because yeah, like you said, it's kind of the beginning of like the Matthew McConaughey era, and it's Matthew McConaughey is a good actor, and I've seen him in a lot of like versatile roles. But like one thing about this movie is it like puts people, even like kind of not as strong actors, into roles that like show their strengths, and I guess that's kind of
Right.
like Soderbergh's like kind of like
Thing.
thing. Like he's good at like kind of bringing that performance out of people because you definitely see some people where you're like, oh, I didn't really know that they could like use this person this well to like really
Right.
like get this. So no, it's great. Yeah, it's
Well, and see, this is the thing. Like, I like Steven Soderbergh a lot. I like the way he directs. He kind of does more of a loose thing with the scripts. Like his scripts aren't every single line of dialogue. He lets the actors improv a lot. He lets them bring their own characterization. So I just he makes movies like on iPhones for like $15,000, and so he's all about experimentation. That's why I love Steven Soderbergh. And when I heard, because like even before this movie came out, Channing Tatum's like his like red, his Entertainment Weekly interview was always about how he used to be a stripper. It was like he brought it up a lot, and apparently he did because they did work on that Gina Carrera movie. Who's I don't even remember the name, but I saw it in theaters. It was bad. But they were like Channing Tatum was in that movie, and they were talking, and he started bringing up like the male stripper thing to Steven Soderbergh, and Steven Soderbergh was like, "Oh, well, let's make a movie about that." And so they kind of locked themselves in a room and like made this and like came up with this idea, and they self-financed this movie, the two of them. So like there was a lot of love that went into this movie, and like I went to go see this movie just because I wanted to support that ass. Just because I wanted to support, like when someone does something like unique independently, if I can support it in theaters, I just like to do that. So I was always gonna watch Magic Mike. But here's the thing, I expected like this kind of maybe like a little bit avant-garde, but like a very traditional dance movie about this guy being a stripper, like a fun,
Like a
fun
Step Up type.
yeah, or like an American Pie Step Up type, like oh, it's a fun romp. But the movie that they delivered is not that movie. I mean, there is a lot of fun in it. There's a lot of dancing and stuff, but Magic Mike is about so much more than just like the dancing. It's not even about dancing, really. It's just kind of about what it was like, what it's like to live in our current society as an artist.
Yeah, just kind of I don't know this like the way he kind of like bounces around and like see it's interesting because I mean I do agree like he is like far more interesting than the kid who like he kind of gets into it, but you
Mhm.
almost need like the contrast of the kid who's really excited by this and him who's like lived it and kind of like hates it a little bit now, you know?
Yeah, and we'll talk about the kid a little bit later because his allegory is great. But here's the thing, like, so yeah, so it takes place over one summer, and we're introduced to this Mike character, and he's kind of like he does everything. He works in construction. That's where he meets Alex Pettifers, who's like a bum who like dropped out of college because he didn't like being told what to do. Um, he does like a bunch of random jobs. He builds furniture, which is what he wants to do, and he's also a stripper. And so he's always trying to like make this money. And you kind of see him doing all these odd jobs,
Yeah.
and it kind of like the one of the best things about this is we immediately see like because Magic Mike has this like facade of like this cool party guy, like he's never down, he's always doing stuff, and then there's the actual Mike who's like this guy who's just trying to survive as an artist and do what he can. And you see the difference between like there's a scene earlier where he meets Alex, he has to give him a ride, and he drives this like brand new truck that's like super rich, and then they're in the car, and Alex is like the plastic is still on like the fucking
Yeah.
radio and stuff, and he's like trying to pull it off, and Magic Mike's like, don't, like it's gonna if we leave that on, it's gonna make it way more valuable when I sell it, and it's like you see that he's this kind of like
He is like
first
the
of all
grind set
that's
culture, but like he has to
yeah
be, you know?
first of all leaving the plastic on the trucks, Mexican cultural appropriation, guys, that's what we do, okay. Step away, Mike, that's our job. But it's like yeah, he's like this character who he's put on this facade, but he's everything's about the hustle just so he can get to a point where he's kind of doing what he wants to be doing. And
You know,
as
it's like, oh, go ahead.
no go ahead.
I was gonna say like what's kind of interesting too is like you say like he's an artist in a more traditional movie about like it would be about him realizing he wants to be like an artist and be like, oh, I should do this. But in the very first scene, he's like with Olivia Munn, and he's like, "Oh yeah, like I made that table with like found like debris on the beach," and she's like, "Oh wow, you should like sell these for a living." He's like, "Yeah, I'm trying to. Like I already know what I want to do. It's really hard to get like a business off the ground. Like it's so
Yeah.
expensive, and it's like." So it's not like a story of like, oh, someone just realizes to follow their dreams. Like, no, he's been trying to follow his dreams for years at this point, you know?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because that is one of my again, like I just see so many parallels because even before we saw Magic Mike, when we were even doing the last ones in college, me and Josh, we were like, I told Josh like a bunch of times that my biggest fear wasn't like failure, it's compliance. It's like you find a girl you like, you get married, you find a job that pays well enough. Sure, you're not doing what you want to be doing, but you're getting paid and you're moving through life. And to me, if I'm not making movies, there's no point. And so it's kind of like this like there's the existential crisis of wanting to be an artist. That's one thing, and that's a big hurdle to get across. There's another one of when your life gets good and you're still like struggling. Like right, I've had jobs that they paid well. I was in a cool part of, I was in a cool area. I was having fun. I had a relationship, and it was like, yeah, I could see the rest of my life just being this. But that's when you really figure out whether you want to be an artist, when you don't have to do it, when you
Right.
want to do it. And I think like there's very few movies that are about this phenomena. I think like Magic Mike and maybe Inside Llewyn Davis are probably the only ones. Inside Llewyn Davis is like he's a little bit further along, but it's about kind of the same thing. This like not the leap at the beginning, it's the leap in the middle to keep going. And I think there's so many people who don't make that leap, and I think it's even scarier. And I don't fault anyone who doesn't, but it's cool that this movie kind of centers around this idea of Magic Mike's a good stripper. He's a good construction worker. He's a good whatever. He's making a shitload of money, but it's not what he wants to be doing. And so you kind of like he has to figure out whether he wants to chase a dream where he might fail, or whether he wants to stick around where he's not happy with what he's doing.
Yeah, like can he accept it? And I haven't seen the sequels at all. Or I guess the new one's just coming out. But yeah, no, I mean, I think this movie definitively answers like, no, you should do whatever you can to like follow it, you know.
Right, right. And okay, so then he meets Alex's sister, and Alex is named the Kid. I don't know if he ever has a real name, but anyway, he meets
They say
Brooke.
Alex a couple times.
Is his name Alex in the movie? I could see that. I
Yeah,
thought
because
it was
his
going to
sister's
double up.
like, oh, Alex, I tried to call. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And I think I get confused because his real name's Alex and nobody else does that. Um,
yeah, that
and
is
so
weird.
you have his sister is played by Cody Horn, who plays Brooke, and she's like the complete opposite of Magic Mike, where she's like she works in like the billing department of a hospital, and she doesn't really have like really desires, but she's like happy, She's just kind of she's trying to find her peace in a different way with like finding a good job and
Although
trying to live.
you do see just a little bit of it though, like the guy she's dating who's like droning on about Medicaid
He
billing or
He's
something.
the no, he's droning on about like because she does Medicare billing and he's like an investment banker or some shit, and he won't stop talking, and then he's like, enough about work. And she's like, oh, I don't want to talk about work either. I don't want to talk about billing. And um and then he goes like, well, there's a big difference between billing for like medical and billing for whatever investment bankers bill for. And it's like the perfect 2012 douchebag.
Right. Well, and that's like I don't know because I'm pretty like I try like I've had a lot of jobs where you just kind of try to go with the flow and be like whatever, it's fine. But there is that like if you ever spend time outside of work with coworkers and all they want to do is talk about the office, it's like
Right.
no, somebody kill me.
No, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's that. It's that he's willing to drone on about his boring ass job, but the minute she tries to, he's like, no, I don't give a shit anymore. It's like that
Yeah,
narcissism. Because
he's
then
that
she like
guy.
takes a drink of beer and he's like, hey, I can't drive tonight. Remember, I'm the
Oh
one who's
yeah.
gonna get drunk. And it's just like he doesn't even realize that he's such a douchebag. And I think it's just like there that happens so much, especially in your early 20s, when you're like, this guy's got a good job, I might as well. And again, it works as a perfect balance because she's leaving this guy who has a good job, but he's like the least fun person ever made. And then you have Mike, who's maybe leaving all his jobs, but he's like the funnest person ever. And I think like this was also kind of, we talk about the resurgence of Matthew McConaughey, but like Channing Tatum, he kind of blew up with the dance movies, and then he made like a bunch of kind of boring action movies that nobody remembers. And then with 21 Jump Street, people started to realize that he could do more. Like he wasn't just a pretty face. And so you really get all of his personality in this movie. Like he's bringing it to this character. And so it takes a lot of good acting to play the character of Mike, because you have to be like super fun 1 second, and then but it has to be a facade, because like Matthew McConaughey is playing like the unironic Magic Mike, where he doesn't,
Yeah, he loves it.
there's nothing going on up there. Yeah. And he just like, if he's dancing, he's thinking about how hot he is dancing. If he's
Which
making money, he's thinking about money,
which is like that is McConaughey in real life too. Like he's just
Yeah.
that guy who's like whatever. Like
Yeah.
it's cool.
I think Matthew McConaughey only wears one shirt in this whole movie, and it doesn't fit like even a little bit. It, like goes up to his chest.
I do. Yeah, there's like a there's a workout scene where he's trying to work out with like the kid as he's coming in as a new stripper. And he's wearing this like '80s workout outfit with like a headband. And it's like, oh, what a delight!
Yeah.
What a
And like
delight he
there,
is.
every stripper movie has to have a dancer teaches the other dancer how to dance. And so that it's really good, because Matthew McConaughey is like, you gotta fuck the audience, and they're like, oh, we're not getting monetized on this one at all. Um, and they're like dancing, and they're like grinding on each other. But it is that kind of thing where it's like, I don't know, it's just like it opens that world, and we haven't really talked about that as much. But you see a lot of like it's like it exists in this world of like almost shady stuff, but it's not shady. You know, like kind of like porn shops in general, or like strip clubs, where it's like there's probably a lot of shady shit that goes down in strip clubs, but it doesn't have to be shady. It just usually is.
Yeah, like technically this could be a totally legal establishment, but it like creeps into that.
Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of like, I mean, like kind of later on, there's like a little bit where it's like, oh, one of the guys is like selling pills and stuff, and that's like, you don't have to do that, but I'm sure it's like easy money. Let's do it.
Right, right. Yeah. And like Gabriel Iglesias is in here as Fluffy, or he's not as Fluffy, but he's the DJ. And I can't think of a more perfectly casted strip club male DJ than Fluffy.
Yeah, like he just like embodies it, or like even like Olivia Munn's kind of is on again, off again, and everyone's like, "Oh, she's so wooden in this." It's like, yeah, but you find out later she's putting on like a fake persona in the movie to him. Like, they're kind of being fake to each
Yeah.
other.
Well, no, and I think that's the thing, is that that kind of brings up another aspect of this movie that I really didn't realize until this time, is that Channing Tatum is kind of like, he's he's had this facade for so long that he knows people only through the facade. And so there's like a point where he like invites Olivia Munn back to his house, and they have sex, and then he starts asking her about her day, and she's like, she shuts him down like immediately, like, oh no, this isn't happening, like this
Yeah,
isn't
we're
real.
not having a real conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she like leaves, like she's like, oh, I'm done, and it kind of becomes this thing where like you don't have you're like you put on this facade for so long that people don't want to know the real you. Like they're there for Magic Mike. They're not there for Mike. And it creates a good like counterbalance with Brooke's character, because Brooke, she's the only one in the whole movie who ever asks Mike any questions about anything that he's doing that's not dancing.
Right.
Like she'll ask him like about his tables, and she asks him about his interests, and so you see that kind of breakdown of like the Magic Mike facade when he's talking to Brooke, but it's so like razor thin, because he's still the same guy, that it's like, again, you just have to really be good at acting to pull that off.
Yeah, no, I think too, like kind of the other strippers he works with, like obviously they don't get as much. They're kind of like background characters, but they all like kind of do a good job of showing like where Mike will be if he stays this course.
Right.
Like Joe Manganiello is what, like Big Dick Eddie or something like that.
Yeah.
And there's like the greatest perspective shot of all time of like him using the penis pump in the foreground as like the kids like staring in the background. And then just like
It
he
is
like
funny to
throws his
watch
back out on stage and stuff, you know.
yeah, it is funny to watch the camera angles because like Soderbergh is like making a real like avant-garde style film, and so like yeah, you do have stuff like a penis pump in the front of the frame as it slowly gets bigger. Um,
And just like kind of
Everything's
like
like
the
washed
super
out.
high, like the high level choreography he does, you know, like
Yeah, and that's the cool thing is that like yeah, every 10 minutes when you're not watching like an artist struggle to get on, you get off because Magic Mike does a little dance. And like that, the cool thing, the funny thing is, you can immediately tell that Channing Tatum is a dancer, and the other guys are not dancers. They have like Kevin Nash, Matt Boomer, and it's like they're so stiff, and like Magic Mike will like slither onto the stage every time, and the other guy's
right.
just gonna stand there. It's so funny.
To be fair,
Um,
could Tarzan pull off those moves even if he knew how? Probably not.
well, and
He's
that's the thing. It's like if you run a strip club, like I'm pretty sure they're not all gonna be dancers. Some of them are just gonna be hot dudes.
yeah.
Um, And so like yeah, I think that there's like this scene in the middle where Magic Mike has kind of like he's he's trying to get a loan for his business so he can open it. And he's kind of had this talk with some members that they didn't like, and now he's having a talk with the bank manager and she's like, "Well, you don't have good credit." And he's like, "I know, but like I have all the money to open the business. I just need the bank to kind of sign off and say that I have all the money." And she's like, "Well, we can fix your credit." And he's like, "No, I don't want you to fix my credit. I want you to give me the loan." And it becomes this thing where like when I was applying for jobs, like we had even after Last Ones and Borderland had been released and they were on, I think at the time they were just on Amazon, but I had like a successful movie, well, successful enough, to be on Amazon, successful marketing. I had all this stuff, and it's kind of like every when I was applying for jobs, everyone kind of like turned their back and they're like, "Well, what's this gap?" And I was like, "That's not a gap. That's me creating a feature film that you can now watch. It's us writing trailers and doing the marketing campaign, and so that's not a gap." But to them, it was a gap because I wasn't technically bringing any money in at the time because we were just barely getting it into streaming services. And so to capitalism, I had not done anything for like 2 years. But for me, I had done the most important thing I had ever done. And so you kind of see like Magic Mike kind of has that same thing where society itself doesn't think that he has any value despite him having evidence in front of him that he has value. And it's like that's a hard thing to kind of deal with again. It's like again, this movie's about a stripper named Magic Mike, and they're like showing how the recession and everything affects everyone and affects everything, and like it shows how our stupid ass society doesn't respect anyone who's not a cog in the machine.
It's well, and we should like say too because yeah, it's like a sad scene, and he obviously gets angry and just kind of like leaves. Like it doesn't work, but it's also like looking at it from like this random bank manager's side, like he comes in like a suit and glasses and it's like he's trying to like look as professional as
Right.
possible, but then he hands her a wad of like cash and it's like, Mike, he should have had like traveler's checks or something. Like just you
Well,
know
I think it's like why though? It's money.
no,
Like
no,
what's
he
funny?
shouldn't
What's
have
the
to, but
problem?
it's
Yeah.
like the banks are going to discriminate, and that's an immediate red flag,
Yeah, but that's not a problem on Mike. That's a problem on the banks, and that's the thing. It's like fuck the banks, and
Yeah.
it's also like this thing where they have that scene and the scene with Olivia Munn, and it's kind of like that happens a lot, especially when you. I know, like every time I get close, this might be a little bit too off the cuff, but fuck. Every time we get close to releasing a movie, I start getting like messages and talks from friends that I haven't talked to in a long time who don't know how much my movies make. And so they start like, "Oh yeah, here's an idea for a movie," or here's like they just want to talk about the movie. And you like start getting talked to as if you're an NPC, like you don't have any other role except to be the director in that mold for them and tell them that they're they're actually the ones that have the great idea, you know. And you kind of have that a lot with, especially with Olivia Munn. She kind of talks to him like she doesn't see him outside of a sex object, which again is pretty funny because it's like you don't see that a lot, where the man is like only viewed as a sex object.
Yeah, no,
But
it's interesting.
it's like, yeah, you feel that kind of thing where I mean, when I saw Magic Mike, I was living in Los Angeles, so Jesus Christ, like I would have people like me and William would be outside smoking, and William would be talking to this guy, and he would have no interest, and then he would tell us like, "Oh, I'm trying to be an actor," and William would be like, "Oh, he's a director," and then suddenly the guy would light up, and he would talk to us like if we were his best friends, and it's like, first of all, you don't know what kind of director I am. I'm a Tubi director, buddy. Second of all, like there's not even like a facade. I see what you've done. Like you did it in in like five
Yeah, like
seconds to
turns it
me.
on, but like it's almost though like the culture for it like make reinforces being that way, like to be
Right.
that fake, to be just seeking connections constantly because that's how you
Mhm.
succeed. It's bleak.
Yeah, and I think that, like again, it deals with so much things that a lot of artist movies don't really want to deal with because there's not a lot of easy answers for it. Like how do you prove to someone that you're a human being and not just a fucking dance machine or you know, an artist of that? And so it's like, and I don't think I think Magic Mike eventually learns that you find the people who do value you as who you are as a person and not who you the fake persona. And especially like now, I think even if you don't want to be an artist, how many of us like how much of that relates to social media and the way like we present ourselves on there, and you know, the way we present ourselves at work. There's just so many ways that we kind of hide behind, you know, this fake person, so
Personas,
we don't
yeah.
like so we don't have to show vulnerability. And so, and who do we show vulnerability to? Like it takes Magic Mike the whole movie to figure out the person to show vulnerability to. And I think like, you know, that's not shown enough. Like you can, I think in like I'm usually pretty popular in college and high school, but it's like I know how to turn it on to be popular, and I don't like to turn it off.
Yeah, it's yeah.
As you guys know, because you've never found me likable. But yeah, so it's kind of like I don't know. It just feels so real in a way, you know.
Yeah, no, like we're like it's well, and I think that's almost why the kid's important because like you look, he sees Mike's life from the outside. It's like, oh yeah, he's like hooking up with different chicks and like making like
Right.
hundreds of dollars, and it's like, how could you not love it? It's like, well, here's why you couldn't love it, and
Right.
um,
And I think that happens too. And again, that's why I think the kid is a good parallel. And I'm glad we're now talking about this because you have this thing where it's like sometimes when you're faking it till you make it, you bring someone along and they don't realize that you're faking it, and so they become that person. Like you see so many of these things, especially now. Like how many people are like, "Oh, Andrew." I don't know why I keep using Andrew Tate as an example. He's so easy. Like, "Oh, Andrew Tate is the ultimate alpha dog. Adam Friedland's this ultimate alpha dog." And you look at these guys, and they're like Andrew Tate is not like he's bad at UFC fighter. He's not even a good one. You know, like he doesn't like he's not a good role model, but he has people acting the way he says he acts, but not acting the way he actually is, you know? And so because the way he actually is a little sad. And so the kid kind of falls into that where it's like he thinks that like partying is gonna be so cool. But every time after like the first half of the movie, every time you see the kid, it's just more and more depressing.
yeah, like he gets kind of further into drugs and he starts selling them a little. Well, and what's funny too is that it's almost like the morality tale where the kid's the reason he gets like ultimately like fucked over, because
Right.
the kid loses $10,000 of pills and he basically has to pay it so they don't, basically beat the shit out of the kid or kill him or whatever. So
Right. So the kid ends up owing Fluffy like $10,000, and they're either gonna like kill him, and they kind of beat up Mike because they always hang out together. Um, and then and so Mike has to pay it off, and like he doesn't tell Brooke because Brooke kind of the kid like has a drug overdose, and like that's kind of where again a great scene because it kind of does this thing where like you can fake it till you make it, but both the kid um and Magic Mike, eventually reality is going to catch up to you. You know, like eventually the drug's going to be too strong or the party's going to go on too long. And that scene's really good because it like Brooke being a regular person who actually cares about Mike as a regular person doesn't give a shit about Mike's like excuses because he let her down, you know?
Yeah. Well, and they don't like, and this is actually kind of what I liked is that because they essentially he loses the pills because he's this is like a weird scene too, where they're doing the hot cops. You know, they're going to like this like girls' party, but like it's like a sorority or something, right? But all the
Yeah.
girls' boyfriends are there at the house
It is
too,
very
watching, and
weird.
it's like I don't even know why you'd want to watch this. Like it's
Even
you
if I
want to
was
be.
cool, like I would be cool with it, but I'd be like, yeah, I'm not gonna be there.
Yeah, like it's like I'm fine knowing it's happening. I don't want to see it, see that like the hottest man ever like grind on like your girlfriend or whatever. But
Right.
they like they lose the pills, whatever, and then the kid does like kind of he doesn't like OD like rush to the hospital. It's more like oh he like he's having a hard time waking up, and then like his sister
Right.
freaks out. But it's like so these aren't like oh this is the all is lost one. It's like no these are just two shitty things that happen as a bunch of more shitty like kind of like a steady like steadily things get
Yeah.
slightly worse, you know.
Yeah. And I like that about this movie is that it doesn't like there's not a real there's again just like in real life there's not a lot of big opportunities for like there's no like scene where Magic Mike like has to like Dallas played by Matthew McConaughey has like a gun to his head or it's just
Yeah,
kind of like he has there again why I like this movie so much is because Magic Mike doesn't like he does have the part with the kid where he lets down Brooke and it's he's letting down the first person he's ever let down that he's ever cared about like in a real way before but it's not like he's not running to the airport to it. It's like he has to make the decision, and when he goes to find Brooke, he doesn't tell anyone. Like it's not even that big a scene. They're just like, "Where's Mike?" And they're like, "I think he left." And
yeah.
then Brooke's just at her house. Like she's it's just another night for Brooke.
Yeah, it's like yeah, no, he just decides to do it. It's like yeah, it's never like precipitated on this big like climactic event where it's like now he has to just like no, he got tired of it. He's
Yeah,
like fuck it, you know.
right.
But I also like in you talked about how the kind of the kid becomes his fake persona. So it's like
Mm.
when finally like they find the kid, he's not even really sorry for like Mike losing $10,000. He's just like, oh yeah, you want to do like furniture or whatever. Anyway, you're the best. Later, bro.
Yeah,
Like
he
it's
tells
like
him like, "Oh, he's like, damn, you lost $10,000. Guess you won't get to do that furniture or whatever the fuck you want to do."
it's
It's
like
like,
anyway, Miami's gonna be crazy. You know, it's just
yeah,
like just completely like soulless lifestyle.
yeah, he just kind of like lost the plot 100%. And so it's kind of like, and I feel like that scene also shows kind of Mike, like, there's no end game to this life. It's just kind of like, you kind of have to make the decision whether you want to take a risk or not. And so he obviously he chooses it. But I think like, it's just such a smart movie to do it that way.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's
Yeah.
it's
It's a
quite
good
good.
one. And there's a bunch of hot guys dancing in it.
Yeah,
It's
if you
raining men, obviously,
if
is
you
what it's
like
called.
that. You know what I thought? Because obviously Mike has a bunch of various costume changes. Fireman, cop. At one point, he's like a naval officer,
Yeah.
and I couldn't help but think like the Coens were watching that and being like, he'd be perfect for Hail Caesar because he's also like a naval officer with a big dance number in that. You
Right,
know,
right.
it's just such a like weird like they saw this and cast him for that reason.
Well, I think he's known as a dancer, and that's how he came up. It's also like, yeah, I think that this movie's a lot smarter. It's a lot better. And so, like, now, real briefly, I'll talk about the sequel. I haven't seen the last one. I will eventually. I think the problem with it is that the sequel, when Magic Mike 1 came out, there was a lot of like Andrew Hadas of the world loved it. But there was a lot of normal people who were like, what the fuck is this? I want to see people dance and have fun, not a kid like vomit on himself and Magic Mike have to like get alone, you know? And so Magic Mike 2 very much feels like the movie that people wanted to see. It's like they all reunite and Dallas and the kid leave because they were too expensive. And they're all like, "Oh, let's go to a stripping competition in Miami that apparently they have, and we'll have one last ride." And so they like it kind of shows that he broke up with Brooke, and like you can't really have this movie without Brooke. Like she plays such an
Yeah.
important character, and so it just kind of feels like you've taken a huge step back. And it'd be kind of like if they did a sequel to like The Great Gatsby, but now Tom's like investigating like a murder.
Well, like to me, I thought it was kind of like how like people like think First Blood is, and then First Blood Part
Mhm.
Two is what
That's
like
a
it's like.
that's a great example.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, this is a very thoughtful thing about like Vietnam and like PTSD, and then the second is, yeah, he's just shooting a million people, you know.
Yeah, and like there is like there's clearly an attempt in Rambo 2 to like try to do something because they're like, oh, what if it's like a wish fulfillment when Rambo 1 was a harsh reality, and it's like it's weird to go from harsh reality to wish fulfillment because he's literally saving POWs.
Right.
He's like, and then like I think someone tells him, "Hey Rambo, do we get to win?" I know Rambo tells the colonel, he's like, "Do we get to win this time?" And the colonel's like, "Yes." And it's like, okay, well, you do. And it's like the first one's like super critical of the military. It's so weird. And that's kind of what Magic Mike 2 feels like. I know what you were thinking when you jumped onto this. Like, we're definitely going to compare First Blood 1 and 2 to Magic Mike and Magic Mike XXL. And you're right, we did. Um, and there's also like, and I kind of feel like that's why I'm hesitant to watch the third one. Because again, like it's cool to watch a movie with dancing. Channing Tatum's clearly very passionate about this character, but I feel like you needed Soderbergh, and I think Soderbergh even came back for the third one, if I'm not mistaken. But you needed him to kind of ground the movie, and without him, you're just watching like a fun guys weekend.
Right. Yeah, that's very like playing it up now. And again, I haven't
Mhm.
seen the sequel, but it definitely sounds a lot more silly.
Yeah, and I feel like if you are on the fence, the reason I want to do this movie is A, because it's one of my favorites. B, it's Valentine's Day. And C, it's I like fellas. This is for you. I know you've already turned this podcast off, this episode, but I think like there's so much like I've had so many friends that are male. Like even if I tell them to watch it, they kind of like, huh, yeah, I sure will. And it's kind of this weird thing, but I get it. You know, it's about a bunch of strippers, but it's so much more than that. There's so much. It's so layered. You know, just like the Phantom Menace. It's all layers. And I'm just kidding. Phantom Menace is not layers at all. But you have like just so much of this, and it just like works so well. And I think like if you're skipping on this movie because it stars a bunch of hot strippers, you're really missing one of the best pieces of Americana literature that we've had in the last 20 years. I know this isn't helping my case at all.
Well, no, and it's
Comparing
like
it to The Great Gatsby, calling it
it like
Americana,
it
welcome to
captures
Kansas House. Yeah.
it captures how like like the whole like, oh, I have a dream and I'm gonna follow it, and it's like, okay, well, since 2008, that's like really like 5,000 times harder than it was, you know, but before that. So it's like, I think it kind of like captures like our generation's like fucked economic situation pretty well, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and it's kind of like when nowadays people are like, why are they throwing politics into everything? But it's like I don't, as a filmmaker and as a film watcher, I don't know how you don't throw politics into like every unless you're like making fucking I can't even think Terrifier 2. You know, like I even think about Babylon or what was the name of that movie with Baby, directed by the whitest kids you know?
The movie with the
Barbarian.
baby.
I
Oh,
think about Barbarian,
Barbarian. Yeah, yeah,
and that movie is very straightforward. It's about whatever it's about. I don't want to spoil it. Go watch it.
yeah. Right.
But Barbarian, it takes place now. She's trying to find a job. She's in Detroit and she's surrounded by fucking empty houses that have been destroyed by the economy. You know, like you see Nope, they're trying to hold things together because they're trying to like keep this new CGI problem from like taking over their livelihood. And these things, like if you're trying to set a movie in real life, if you see fucking Star Wars, it's about a giant imperialistic society trying to crush a bunch of rebels because they don't like what they're doing. Every movie, whether you want to or not. Or like not every movie, but most movies, especially if they're made by an artist, because some movies aren't, and that's cool too. But most of them are going to be about our society in some way or another. Even if it's about a blue angel riding a beautiful whale, you're going to get some anti-environmental messaging in there.
You're gonna say eco-terrorism is the
Even
right call.
even if your movie's about an annoying Mexican falling in love with a beautiful starlet, you're gonna put some politics in there, okay? It's gonna be some Babylon style politics, and so I think like this kind of shows what you can do. Like you can take a movie, like I think of the Joker, where they're like, we couldn't get the Joker made unless we made it about the Joker, and it's like, well, but you look at this movie and it's like, I'm pretty sure that Steven Soderbergh would not have been able to make this movie if Channing Tatum was played by like Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and the art he was trying to do was like, or the thing he was doing was like working at Target. But they took this idea of Channing Tatum being a stripper, and they knew they were going to get like a green light. They knew people were going to want to watch it, and so they try to say something more with it. And Channing Tatum and Steven Soderbergh, they threw their so much of their passion and their ideas as an artist into this movie that it's hard to like hate this movie or not like it. So
Yeah, no,
yeah,
it's a good time. It's very authentic too, and I think that's like
authentic is a great word.
even if you don't, even if like the subject matter doesn't mention to you, but it really like has that authenticity. I think it like pops no matter what.
Yeah.
So
And if you don't like it, you get to see Matthew McConaughey sing a song in leather pants and vest, and then you get to see him get his G-strong ripped out, which was an accident because the girls got too excited when he was dancing, and they just left it in the movie. You get to see everything. So go check out Magic Mike. This is a little bit deeper than we usually get, but I feel like once we get to like our favorite movies, it's just gonna happen.
yeah, that's
And I think like me and Josh and William, when we talk about our favorite movies, it's usually because they are a mix of fun stripper dancing and real themes and
something,
ideas.
yeah, something grounded in like real life, like to some extent, or
Yeah.
it's inspiring in some way. Yeah,
Yeah. So go check out Magic Mike.
yeah.
You don't really have to watch the other
It's
ones.
on HBO, so do the double feature Magic Mike and Barbarian, which is
Yeah.
that's the
And then
economic
you'll be like, what
downturn
the
two
fuck are
pack.
these guys talking about? Yeah, thank you for joining us on the Bomb Squad. Happy Valentine's Day if you celebrate. If not, happy Wednesday or whatever day Valentine's is on. Tuesday. I'm literally looking at the calendar right now. Anyway, welcome back to the Bomb Squad. Check out the Bomb Squad movie on my detective page, on my filmmaking page. And that's it for now. We'll see you guys next week. Hopefully, William will have returned, but we'll see. If not, no, I think next week is. Oh, we might have a special. We'll have a special video. We're going back into the deep dives. So we're going to have a very fun special video. It's one that I've promised. It's the only one I've ever promised, and it's 2 months late. So welcome to
That's
the
the
bomb.
YouTuber promise, you know.
Yeah, I'm the new Hassan Piker. We'll see you guys next time on the Bomb.
Thanks for watching the Bomb Squad. Please, while you're here, give us a like and a subscribe. We really appreciate it and it means a lot.